Hello and welcome to the Vaults of Terra. My name is Ed and today we're going to be continuing our Space Marines chapters videos, which we've allowed to lapse slightly to allow the Imperial Guard videos to start. Now the chapter we're going to cover today is the White Scars, one of the first founding legions of the Space Marines and one that didn't quite get in there with the other Space Marine chapters whilst we were doing the main Space Marine block. Now to give you an overview, the White Scars were the 5th legion of the original 20 Space Marine legions, and their Primarch, whose name I sometimes have trouble pronouncing, is Jagatai Khan. Now, the White Scars practice a highly mobile form of warfare using lightning strikes and prefer to use bikes when attacking an enemy, similar to the Mongol-like cavalry formations from the tribes of their homeworld. Now, their current chapter master is Jubal Khan, and their homeworld is Mundus Planus, also known as Kagoris, which I might have pronounced incorrectly, and I do apologise if I have done so. Their fortress monastery is Quanzhou, which is the former palace of Jagatai Khan, and was then converted into a fortress monastery when he was found by the Emperor. And their battle cry, for I must always do their battle cry, is for the Khan and the Emperor. Now their history, especially around the Great Crusade, is a little bit thin, which is unfortunate because they are quite an interesting chapter in my eyes. However, we do know that by the time the 5th Legion was united with their Primarch, Jagatai Khan had united all the fierce tribes of his homeworld against those who dwelled in the cities on his homeworld, who looked down upon the tribesmen and regularly culled them. They used their cavalry tactics to take over these cities, and by the time the Emperor arrived on Mundus Planus, the world was under the control of the tribes, who had taken over the cities and gone from being the persecuted to the ruling class of the world. Now, as I said, Jagatai Khan was found by the Emperor, who clearly saw him as one of his sons, and gave him command of the 5th Legion, who adopted the traditional tribal facial tattoos and scarring that was so prevalent among the tribes of Mundus Planus. Jagatai Khan took his fiercest warriors from that planet and went to help his father with the Great Crusade. His palace back on Mundus Planus became the fortress monastery that they have today. Now, during the Great Crusade, the White Scars became well known for their hit-and-run tactics. Because of their background horseback fighting on their homeworld, they had a great amount of respect and skill when using Space Marine bikes, and so were able to use very, very quick lightning hit-and-run raids to essentially harass the edges of the enemy and even drive straight through them in order to assault a target. Now, during the Horus Heresy, the White Scars heard of the heresy whilst taking part in a large campaign to deal with the Xenos world. They were immediately ordered back to Terra by dawn, and were going to join up with the Space Wolves who were nearby. Unfortunately, the Space Wolves were then assaulted by the Alpha Legion before they could reach the rendezvous point. And the White Scars were torn between helping the Space Wolves and following Dawn's orders and returning to Terra. In the end, they decided to follow Dawn's orders and reluctantly left the Space Wolves to deal with the Alpha Legion. Now, they were one of the 3 loyalist legions that were actually present during the Siege of Terra, the other 2 being the Blood Angels and the Imperial Fists. Now, their role was not to defend the Imperial Palace as the other 2 legions were, but to assault the rearguard of the enemy, literally using the winding streets and hives of Terra in order to cut off their supply lines, and using the hit-and-run raids they were so good at preventing them from reinforcing so readily, which some suggest was one of the reasons why the palace wasn't immediately overrun by the forces of chaos, because they were being harried from the front and from behind. Now, after the Horus Heresy, the White Scars helped push back the traitors to the edges of the Imperium, and primarily helped push a lot of the traitors into the Maelstrom, which is one of the other warp rifts in the galaxy, similar to the Eye of Terror. Now, they also fought off many Xenos during this time who had tried to capitalise on the Imperium strife, specifically Dark Elder raiders who had tried to assault their homeworld. Now, they did quite well against the Xenos, however, during one of the final battles against them, Jagatai Khan was lost following a Dark Elder Lord through a webway portal, and he was never seen again. To this day, the White Scars hate the Dark Elder above all other Xenos. They're also present in many other conflicts in the next 10,000 years, including the Sabbath Worlds Crusade and the Third War for Armageddon. Now, moving on from their history, I want to talk a little bit about their Combat Doctrine. Now, their chapter is highly mobile, even for a Space Marine chapter, specialising in lightning warfare and making the use of bikes, land speeders, storm talons and other fast vehicles. Now, you'll know a Space Marine bike does have 2 twin-linked bolters attached to the front, although this can be replaced by a storm bolter, so they do have an offensive and ranged weapon. However, they also like to augment that with a weapon called the Power Lance, providing the same destructive potential as a power weapon, such as a power sword, but at a much greater range. They are often used to outmaneuver heavily armed and armoured forces who cannot move as quickly as the White Scars on their bikes, and they are able to usually get behind the enemy and do a lot of damage to their rearguard before disappearing off into the wilderness again, and then returning in an unexpected direction to deal great amounts of damage to the enemy. The White Scars do prefer to attack from range, so they'll never usually get up close and personal when it comes to fighting, unless they have to use their power lance, preferring to use their speed and firepower to destroy the enemy before it becomes necessary to go up there and hit them. However, they are more than capable of Astartes warriors and can definitely take the fight hand to hand with the enemy if needs be. Now, their organisation is very similar to that of many other chapters, although they do tend to divide their companies into tribes and have a few different warriors within them. They are very much a chapter who follows the idea of hunting, and they do have specialist marines who will go off and hunt specific enemies of the White Scars in order to bring them to justice, usually bringing their head back to Mundus Planus, back to their fortress monastery, and getting it encased in silver and placed on a wall. Now, I'm not sure if there's any historical significance to this, so do tell me if you know. However, it is very interesting to see they are more about the individual when it comes to the enemy, and less about fighting the main hordes of them, knowing that the best way to defeat an enemy is to get rid of their leader. Cut off the head and the body will die. Now, as I said, they are mainly a codex chapter. However, they take a lot of their terminology from their homeworld. For example, librarians prefer to be referred to as Stormseers. Today, all the White Scars are recruited from Mundus Planus, and they take all the promising young warriors regardless of their tribe. Once a warrior becomes a White Scar, his loyalty to his tribe is replaced by his loyalty to his chapter and the Emperor. As the Primarch did during his campaign to unite the steppes, the recruits from many different tribes are actually mixed together in squads. Each squad then becomes part of a brotherhood roughly equivalent to a standard company. However, as I mentioned, the White Scars have many more bike squadrons than any other chapter, and if they're not assigned to a bike squadron, many other marines will be assigned to land speeder squadrons, storm talons, or other rapid assault craft, so that they can get into combat very, very quickly and then retreat before returning. It's very similar to the Raven Guard's method of combat, although less stealth-oriented. They also do not have many Devastator squads as a result of their background, because they don't like the idea of slow, heavy-moving targets. For the same reason, they don't have many battle tanks and vehicles such as Land Raiders, although they do have a stock of rhinos, of course, to get their warriors to the front as quickly as possible. The simplest way of following their idea of hit-and-run raids. Now, a final note is that the White Scars don't possess many dreadnoughts, as the thought of confining a warrior spirit within a sarcophagus is abhorrent to them. In fact, I believe they actually burn their dead, as opposed to allowing them to be entombed anywhere, following the tribal traditions of their homeworld. So that's everything I wanted to mention today on the White Scars. I apologise if this video was a bit quiet, but I am having to be quiet today. We will continue with our Imperial Guard videos next week, so do look out for them. I think we're starting on our armoury videos now, so you'll get a chance to see the weaponry, the vehicles and the armour that is used by the Imperial Guard, as well as some of their equipment. Now, I do have one more announcement to make. As many of you may know, I am a bit of a gamer. And when I say a bit of a gamer, I spend most of my time playing video games. And recently a game called Starbound came out. So I decided, in collaboration with Peter, who was the guy who heard in the first video of the Vaults of Terra, to do a few Starbound videos on his own channel, which is called Sonic Waffles, all one word with the S at the end replaced with a Z. Now, we'll be doing a few videos just going through the game itself, as it's currently in beta. It's mainly just so we can let off a bit of steam, and so you guys can see what I do in my spare time, and see him actually talking again, as opposed to being someone we haven't really heard from in a while. He is still around. So I'll put a link at the end of this video when it comes out. I'll also put a link in the description. Also, one final thing, please do visit the Vox Relay, which is the Vaults of Terra forums, as we do have some good discussion going on there. There's about 100 members now, so it's been going well since the last time I spoke to you all, and that is going to have a link in the description below, and do go there if you have any major questions you want to ask or any suggestions, as that is where we're going to do the majority of our voting and the majority of my feedback getting from now on. Also, if you have any questions you'd like to ask me directly, do get in contact with me via personal message. So that's everything I wanted to mention today. See you next time on the Vaults of Terra.